Assalamualaikum everyone. Welcome all of you to the grammar class. In today's lesson, we'll study the remaining type of verbs that we have in English, and I hope that state and action verbs, main and helping verbs, which are also called as auxiliary verbs, are quite clear to you. Now, in today's class, let's move on to another type of helping verb, that is modals. Models are these words which you can see in the visual: can, could, may, might, will, would, shall, should, and must. And I'm sure you know these verbs and you use these a lot too. So, models help us to express mood in a sentence. So, what is mood? In grammar, mood means the attitude of the speaker, the feeling that I want to convey to you. For example, if I said the Patriots might win the Super Bowl this year. So, if you don't know what that means, the Super Bowl is actually an American football tournament in the US, and the New England Patriots are the team. So, I'm here making a prediction about the future, and I'm using modal verb might to do that. Now, try to read that sentence without might. The Patriots win the Super Bowl this year. It sounds like I'm 100% sure, but that's not what I want to say. I want to say that I may be 70% sure. That's why I'm using might. So, might add that mood to the sentence that I'm talking about possibility in the future. I'm not definitely sure about it. So, models can also express ability, like my sister can play the guitar. In that sentence, play is the main verb and can show ability. Or if I said you must not smoke here. So, what's that mood I'm trying to convey? I'm using the modal verb must in the negative form. That's must not, to show that you don't have any permission. So, you must not smoke here. So, in that way, models help us to express mood in a sentence. All right, so that was our discussion on the main and helping verbs. I hope all is clear to you now. So, let's move on and talk about regular and irregular verbs. To understand these, you need to know a little bit of background information, and that is in English, only verbs can have tenses. Yes, we can have tenses only in English, and that's for verbs only. Of course, you know about past tense, present, and future tense, but to make tenses, we change the form of verbs. Do you know how many forms of verbs are in English? There are actually five forms, and we call them uh, infinitive form, the present tense form, the past tense form, the past participle form. This form is used in some tenses, and it's also used in conditionals and in passive voice, so it's an important form. And then we have ing or continuous form. So let's take an example of the regular verb to cook, and its present tense form is cook or cooks. That's because we say I, you, we, they cook, and he, she, or it cooks. Okay, then the past tense form is cooked. The past participle form is also cooked, and ing form is cooking. Now we say this is a regular verb because both the past tense form and the past participle form are just ed ending. You can see in the visual cooked. But you cannot do that with the irregular verbs, like the verb to go. Okay, the present tense form are go or goes, but the past tense form is not goed, G-O-E-D. No, it's went, and the past participle form is gone. Or take the verb to be. It has three forms: present tense form, am, is, are, and yes, I am, you are, he is, she is, and two past tense forms, was and were. And the past participle form is been. Here is one last example: the verb to read. Okay, its past tense and past participle form are spelled red, but are spelled read, but pronounced red, like the color red. So you might be thinking, but how can I guess the past and past participle form of irregular verbs? Well, the answer is you cannot, and that's what it means when we say that a verb is irregular. There's no rule for making the two past and past tense, past participle forms. You just have to learn them through experience. So it's a good idea for you to go to your through your dictionary or to your course books, or try to learn as many as irregular verbs as you can, because that would help you to use English without making mistakes. Okay, so I hope these regular and irregular verbs are quite clear to you. Now let's move on to our final type of verb, and that's transitive and intransitive verbs. Have you ever heard of these before? Well, they are actually really easy, but they are also important because a lot of students make mistakes in these area. So, transitive verb is a verb that takes an object. What do I mean by object? Do you know in grammar the object of a verb is a noun actually, and that's the person, place, animal, or thing that receives the action of a verb. Remember that. And a transitive verb always takes an object. Okay, I know you might be feeling a little confused. Now, what does all this mean? So, for that, I will show you a couple of examples to help you understand the concept. So, if I say Duncan kicked, I repeat, Duncan kicked. So, does that sound a little wrong? Because you might ask me, Duncan kicked what? And I would have to say something like, oh, sorry, Duncan, Duncan kicked the ball. So, here, for example, the ball is the object of the verb kick because the ball receives the kick, and the verb kick is the transitive verb. It always means an object. Some other common transitive verbs like live, die, give, laugh, climb, cry, sleep, sit, stand. So, with all of these, you ask questions who or what, and you will get an answer. Now, Duncan kicked what? The ball. Like, I made a cake. I made what? A cake. So that's how you know these are all transitive verbs. What about intransitive verbs? Intransitive verbs, can you tell me what it means to be an intransitive verb? Well, that's a verb that does not take an object. For example, verbs like live, die, laugh, cry, run, sit, sleep, stand, etc. These are all intransitive verbs and they don't take objects. For example, the old man laughed loudly. So, here, notice in that sentence, there is no object. We are saying the old man laughed, but then loudly is not a perfect or a thing receiving the action. That's just an adverb, and that gives us information about laugh. So, if you ask the question, the old man laughed who or what, you will get to know the answer that that's how you know the verb is intransitive. So it does not take any object. That's the main thing about intransitive. And I told you the students make mistakes with these kind of verbs as well. Like what kind of mistakes they make? They do most common mistakes, like they often leave out the object with a transitive verb. For example, students say the thief climbed and then escaped. And can you identify the error in this sentence? Well, the mistake is that the verb climb is a transitive verb, and you need to say climbed what, and you need to say an object. Now, in your mind, you might have a picture of a thief climbing over a wall and then running away. But you need to say that, now. You need to say the thief climbed over the wall and then escaped, like in the picture. So don't make that mistakes of leaving out an object. after the transitive verb. Remember that. Okay, now let's quickly recap what we have learned in today's lesson and in our previous lesson. We started with state and action verbs. Remember always that state verbs shows a situation and we don't use ing form with state verbs. And then we spoke about main and helping verbs like be, do, and have. And these are the most important helping auxiliary verbs, but sometimes they can be used as main verb as well. Modals are another type of helping verbs and they help us to show mood, that things like possibility, ability, permission, etc. Then we turn to regular and irregular verbs. The past and past participle form of irregular verbs cannot be guessed, so you have to learn them through experience and go through your codes and textbooks and grammar books. And finally, we spoke about transitive verbs which take an object and in intransitive verbs which do not take an object. So you remember the common error that I share with you, which is leaving out an object from the transitive verb. All right, I hope you enjoyed this series of lesson on the verbs, auxiliary verbs, models, etc. See you in the next lesson. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.